You've tuned into Tomcat Tales, the story of Ashland's legends from the gridiron, the court, the diamond, and beyond. It's a deep dive into Ashland Tomcat sports history. Now, here's your host, Mark Maynard.
Well, welcome everybody to Tomcat Tales. We're here for another episode, number 11. And I have a special guest with me today, and all the way from Austin, Texas. And it's Howard Humphreys. He's a great friend. We've known each other via Facebook more than anything else, I guess. But he was a great basketball player for the Tomcats in the 50s, and played with a lot of great players. And he had a great college career. We're going to talk about that. And we're just going to get some of his views on things that are going on. And he's a good friend. I really consider him a great friend. And Howard, welcome to Tomcat Tales.
Thanks, Mark. Certainly glad to be here, and enjoyed your shows with my old friend Herb Conley, a great guy, and it's a pleasure to be here with you.
Well, Howard, I guess I got to ask you. You keep up with Ashland about as well as anybody I know, especially. You know, you're certainly from here, but you left here after high school, and really, I guess, never really came back. I guess, you know, you went to college and, you know, have a great career and all that, and live in Austin, Texas now. So your allegiance, though, has been pretty strong to Ashland.
Yeah, Mark. I mean, I almost consider myself an Ashland native, although not. My dad was with an oil company back in the day, and we lived in several different spots, including Coffeyville, Kansas, and Findlay. I was actually born in Findlay, Ohio. He was with Marathon Oil. And then he got transferred to Ashland with the Ashland Oil Company, and we actually moved, and I don't really remember a whole lot of this, but we moved to Ashland when I was actually in kindergarten, and we lived at the plant. They had some company houses out there then, and we lived there. And I actually he moved into Ashland in the first grade. So I consider myself a native. I started at Condit, went to Coles, and then Ashland High School. So Ashland to me is my hometown.
Well, I know you graduated that class of 57, right?
That's correct, 1957.
And that's a class that, you know, Madge Haney has kept up with you guys, and you all have some of the biggest reunions probably of any of the classes at Ashland High School. And I know you came back for that pretty regular on that.
Yeah, they've had quite a few, Mark. She's really great at keeping us advised on things. She runs the Class of 57 website. We've had several reunions, almost starting from the 5-year reunion. We had one not too long ago that a lot of people attended, and she does a great job on those. It really keeps us connected with with Ashland and our old classmates. So it's a nice thing to have, and a nice thing to be able to be reading. She still does it, and like I say, does a great job.
Yeah, she does, and I'd be remiss without mentioning her husband Phil just passed away, and he was a great man, great Ashland fan as well. Transplanted, he was a Paintsville boy.
I really got to know Phil real well. I didn't know a whole lot about his playing career, but I think he was a pretty doggone good basketball player. And of course, I think Madge and Phil lived near Putnam Stadium at that time that I remember, and probably still do, or Madge still does. And I think Phil did a lot of work on the Tomcat stadium field, if I recall.
Yeah, he's been, you know, they've been real active. You know, anywhere he'd go, he was wearing a Tomcat hat, so he definitely caught the fever, I guess. But they were just regular big supporters, and you know, I hated to see him pass. But anyway, you know, you talked about basketball. We talked a little bit before we went on here, and just, you know, things were different than they are now. Really, I mean. You know, people were different, towns were different. Can you just talk about Ashland a little bit, how Ashland was when you were growing up?
Oh, Mark, it was so nice and enjoyable. I think back on it many times. we lived on Maple Avenue, and it was a different time. People played outside, and I remember my mother used to say, when it starts getting dark, just come home, or she'd step outside and holler at us. But it was a good time. I had great neighbors, old Tomcats, George Rupert, Bill Kazee, Robert Wright, guys that lived in the neighborhood. So it was a fun time. It was great to grow up in Ashland. Like I say, I can remember, going to Condit, walking to Condit, not through the snow or any of those stories, but and to Coles and Ashland High School, and it was a different time. I mean, the summers in Ashland were great. At that time, both Dreamland and Southside swimming pools were open, and they had outdoor courts. And I can just remember playing, as a junior high player or a high school player, basketball games out there back in the day. And I don't know if they still do it. It was like 3-on-3, and guys, if you lost a game, you had to sit out a long time to get back in. But it was a fun time, great time to grow up in Ashland.
So tell me some of your guys you looked up to, growing up. I guess those early 50s guys, I guess, were some of your early.
Yeah, they were. I was a neighbor a couple houses down on Maple of Bob Emmerich. I think he went on to do real well at Florida, and just guys like that. Bill Kazee that played basketball at center, and just guys like that did real well. At Dreamland, I think we used to play with a lot of the players from Marshall. So you really you kind of grew up as a high school player playing against some of that competition, and it was really good. I have no idea if that still goes on. I would doubt it, but those were good times to really get outside and play on the courts and have a good basketball competition.
Yeah, well, they did that for a long time. They still, played ball at those pools. Of course, Southside, there isn't a Southside anymore.
Right.
They had to shut it down. And Dreamland, I don't think they play like they used to. But I remember even growing up in the 70s, and it was the same kind of thing. If you lost, you didn't play for a long time.
Yeah.
And out of those really good 60s teams, they all played at those two pools. It's interesting. AAU has kind of replaced all that, I guess, in a lot of ways, and I'm not sure in a lot of good ways, to be honest. I think you learned a lot about how to play, didn't you, on the pool at the pool?
Yeah, I mean, it was back in the day where if you got fouled, you had to call a foul, and you almost had to get knocked down to call a foul. Nobody wanted to do that, so it was a tough time to learn a lot about basketball, particularly from some of the older players. But I enjoyed every second of it.
Yeah. So, of course, Ashland was a lot more populous place than it is now, for sure. Back then, I mean, schools. There was, I don't know how many grade schools. There's probably 8 or 10, I would say, when you were in grade school.
There used to be a very competitive junior high tournament. And also a very competitive grade school tournament, even Mark, back in those days, because, there were, I know Dale, I think, went to Charles Russell and different players that I played in high school with. There must have been, like you say, at least a dozen, elementary schools back then. And
I'm not sure I could name them all. I mean, I know, now we have, I think 6 now or 5. And it's a different kind of thing. It's more of an AAU type setup. It's not so much grade schools themselves. They kind of took that away a few years ago, which I always hated, because I think there was always a lot of pride even within the little grade school ranks. Growing up in Ashland.
Yeah, back in those days, Mark, I think a lot of the coaches. I know my coach at Condit, who I got to visit on one of my trips back to Ashland before he passed, J.D. Welch. I think a lot of those guys were volunteers at that time. I started at Condit when I was in the 3rd grade, and I can remember, back then, he would pick, maybe 15 or 20 people, guys to play on the team. And he was just a volunteer coach, and had a great visit with him. I mean, he was a class guy and really worked hard with us. Learned a lot from him back in those days, even when I was in the third grade. So it is different now. I'm sure that doesn't happen anymore.
Well, it's all volunteer and all that still, I guess. But you talk about J.D. Welch. I knew him very well. Went to church with him a lot.
Yeah.
At Unity Baptist, where I go to church still. And he's a fine man, that's for sure. He really was.
Dale and I stopped by one time when I was back for a reunion, and I think he lived, if I recall, he lived out close to Putnam Stadium, not real near, but he lived on a street out there. And we sat on the porch and probably visited with him for an hour or so. It was good to catch up with him from those days.
Yeah, he was a good fellow, that's for sure.
Yeah.
Your all's team. I kind of wanted to talk about them a little bit. I guess your 56 was that your senior year? Is that right? 57
was 56, and 55. Just to kind of set that mark, I remember George Conley well. I thought he would be our coach at that time, but he retired the year before. Bob Lavoie came in, and so I didn't get to really play on any of his teams, although it certainly been nice to do that. I know occasionally back then, I'm not even sure if that's legal now, but when we were at Coles, if there was a B team and Coach Conley would, maybe pick a couple of us from Coles to come play with some of their guys in a preliminary game, and I always enjoyed that, nice to get that kind of exposure. But it was 56 was the year that George Carroll, who I think people that know Ashland basketball would remember, and that was my junior year in 56.
And so I mean, George scored a lot of points. He's about as good a shooter as Ashland's maybe ever had. I mean, I know a lot of people maybe don't know the name, but he really was a player.
George was a player, I think, in one of the AIT games, if I'm not mistaken. I don't remember how many points, but it was a record back then, and it was fun to play with those guys. I mean, it was a real learning experience. You kind of learned a lot for later in life, I guess. We lost some crucial games that seemed really tough at that time, but you go on and pick yourself up and do other things.
Yeah. Of course, so you were there. Were you there the night then when he scored his 52 against Car Creek?
I was, yes. I was on. That was the team that I was on. I was a junior that year.
Well, tell me about that game a little bit.
I mean, he was a fantastic shot. I mean, George, played basketball, I think 24/7, and he was really a good shooter, a good teammate. Played at the pools all the time, and just one of those nights that he was really hot, and they couldn't stop him, and it was kind of fun to. I'm not sure I was playing in all those minutes that he played, but it was nice to see stuff from the bench that he was doing. So he's. He was just an all-around good athlete.
So Larry Castle tells the story about Bob Lavoie, of course, in that game when George would hit one. Of course, he switched about everything he shot, and the net would spin up and get on the rim. And Bob's about 6'9", and he would go on the court on his tiptoes and grab the net and unfurl it.
Yeah, he had to do that a few times because, as they say, some of George's shots were court and floor, as they say. It didn't hit anything.
Now that was the night the Globetrotters played too, though, right?
Yeah, that was right. I didn't really see much of that. I don't remember. I remember they did, but I think Coach Lavoie had us somewhere before that, so I didn't really see that. But I understand that was some of the guys watched that, and they were pretty amazed at some of the shots that George made.
So Did you all play before? Did they play before you?
I think, if I recall, I think they played after we did, but I'm not sure. I don't remember that. I just remember they were there at the time, and I remember, we didn't get to see much of it. I'm assuming it was before, but again, I don't remember exactly that, Mark.
So that's your all's junior year, and
yeah,
and I think I can't remember. Did Russell win it that year or not? I'm talking about the region or Mount Sterling. I can't remember now.
I think we got beat, if I recall, in the regional finals, and I think it might have been Mount Sterling. I don't remember. I know it was kind of a crushing defeat, and I know George and some of the seniors were really disappointed that we didn't get to move on, but it was we made it that far, and like I say, George was certainly the leader of that team.
Oh, I know Olive Hill was really good.
Olive Hill was good. Yeah, they were good.
They had a lot of good players. Larry James and some of and Bert Green and some.
Bert Green was a good left-handed guard, if I remember right. Great shot also. So yeah, there was some tough competition in the region. I think from what you've told me, it's changed a lot. I mean, you had to really go hard to even get out of the district, and the regional was even tougher. So
you had so many teams,
right?
District, that were hard to climb over. You didn't just now. If you win one, you're in. Pretty much every district's 4 teams. And of course, consolidation has caused that, of course, and changed things a lot. Really changed things. Ashland's no longer the biggest school in the region or anything else. So, things are a lot different for sure. 57, your senior year, you guys were poised to be pretty good, really, though. I mean, you had a lot of people back, and I know you had Robert Rod, and Don Church, and yourself, and helped me.
Yeah, we had a good team, Mark. Coach LeBoy, he was a good coach, and he had a lot of savvy about game plans and conditioning and things like that, and we did. I mean, we had a pretty tall team for that time. I mean, I think I can't remember his name, but there was a writer from the Louisville Courier-Journal that said we were at that time the tallest team in Kentucky. I mean, Don was 6'7", Dale was 6'5".
Dale Sexton, right? Yeah.
Yeah. Dale Griffith, actually. And, all the guys. I mean, Dale was a substitute, but Dale Griffith was 6'5". Don was, like I say, was probably 6'6". I was 6'3". Robert was probably 5'10" or 6 feet, and Jim Meek, our other starter, was a 6-footer. So we did have a pretty tall team, and that year we played some pretty tough competition.
Yeah, I know that year you guys first time you played Russell, I think you beat them 25. I think that's what it was, if I remember right, something close to that, in the 20s, and they were considered one of the better teams for sure. And as the season goes on, of course, you all had a little controversy that hit, and 2 of your players got dismissed from the team. That would be Robert and Don, right?
Yeah, that was pretty disappointing because we did have a good year going. I think that year we'd won the AIT. I think we beat both Flat Gap and Maysville, and they had players like Charlie Osborne and Toothpick Jones and people like that played. So it was a big plus for us. And at that time, the AIT was one of the premier tournaments in the state, and they had some really, really good teams that came in every year, and 57 was particularly tough. So that was a nice win. Of course, Robert and Don were still with us, and then after that, as we were nearing the end of the basketball season, they did get dismissed from school. So that's when we had to count on Herb and Herb Conley and Larry Castle and Dickie Fillmore to kind of fill in as sophomores. Coach LeBoy brought them onto the team, and a more prominent group at that time. So it was disappointing to have that happen, but again, that's sports. So no.
Yeah.
Then,
So yeah, go ahead.
And then obviously with that, we played Russell again in the first game of the district and lost, and so that ended our season. We had beaten them, like you said earlier in the year, by quite a few points, and then in the rematch, I'm not sure if I remember Mickey Seidenstricker was probably Russell's premier player at that time, and I'm not sure he played in the first game. Somebody said he did, but that I talked to, and somebody said he didn't. He came in from Huntington at mid-year. But anyway, it was that's what it was, and that was a disappointing ending to the high school season.
So how did Ashland people losing in the district first game? I mean, that couldn't have pleased them too much. Ashland fans, I'm talking about.
No, that was pretty disappointing because teams before had done well, but as you well remember, they really started grooming basketball there more and more, and there were some pretty good ninth grade players at that time that that were the graduating class of 61 that with Larry Conley in that group that went on to really shine. So it was the start of some pretty good basketball, which I can easily understand with all the competition and all the opportunities to play at a lot of different places. Right.
Yeah. Those guys, they set the standard, set the bar pretty high, of course.
Right.
And you guys were there, the guys they looked up to, I mean, it's really, and it's been that way at Ashland, I think, through the years, kids watching kids come up and watching kids play. You talked about the AIT. Was that, you played in the first AIT, right? I think it was called the Greenbow Invitational or something.
That's correct. That was, I think, the 56 team, if I remember right.
Okay.
Mark.
Yeah.
That,
you had some pretty good games in that, I think, didn't you? In that AIT?
Yeah, that worked out well for me because actually, I do remember that pretty well because I scored pretty well, and also actually was responsible for us winning the first game with foul shots at the very end, and also putting us in an overtime in the second game that we beat both Flat Gap and Maysville to win that tournament. So yeah, that was a good time.
Of course, Flat Gap with Charlie Osborne,
right.
They still talk about that guy and what a great player he was, in the mountains, and one of those mountain legends, really, I guess. He could fill it up.
Well, that kind of reminds me when you said that he was obviously a big scorer, and Coach Lavoie, like I said, was a good strategist. So he devised a scheme where, and I can't remember who it was. I don't think I played in front of him or behind him, but I think maybe Don played in front of him or behind him maybe, and Dale played in front. And then we let one of the guards just kind of roam free out in front. So we ran an offense or a defense that I've never seen before, but it worked pretty well. I think we held him down. I don't know how many points he got, but it did frustrate him a lot that he had two people on him all the time, and we just let what we thought was a lesser shooter of the guards stay out front, and kind of ran a kind of a funny zone defense from that. So I have to credit Coach Lavoie with coming up with that strategy, and I think we may have used the same defense in the second game against Maysville because their center was a pretty big guy, and I think we did that the second time.
Yeah, of course. I got to give John McGill credit first for starting the AIT, and then for bringing people like Flat Gap and Maysville in there because
they had some great teams that came in. I mean, it was the kind of the premier tournament in high school Kentucky basketball at that time, and I do know he did a good job on it in bringing quality teams in. The Armory did sell out on all those games. I can tell you that it was a good crowd, and the Ashland people really supported it back then.
he was kind of a Barnum and Bailey kind of guy, you know. I mean, he liked to, you know, he liked building these things up, and you know, of course, he'd build them up in the paper and get the crowds out. But you know, you bring good teams in like that, especially back then. I think people were going to come out and watch, and obviously they did. So that, and obviously that you look at what that's turned into. You know, it's you know, it's still a great tournament, and I think the coach that's there now, Jason Mays, is trying to really build that thing back up, you know, to be one of the more prestigious tournaments. And he might get some help because of COVID, to be honest, because people aren't going to be traveling like they were.
I can really speak, you know, just for myself and listening to his shows. He's a very impressive guy. I mean, I've listened to several of the shows that are on, and obviously his coaching skills are superb. So Ashland is lucky to have a guy like that. He seems very dedicated, and guys, the players now, I mean, last year's season certainly is a tribute to what they've developed, and I know it starts early. So somebody's got to take credit for it, and I think he's done a good job.
He definitely has. I hope they're able to keep him for a while. But anyways, you know, as far as like you said, you guys lose to Russell, and that's the end. But it wasn't the end of basketball for you. You go to Southwest Louisiana. And
yeah, that's kind of an interesting story, Mark. I mean, I have to give credit to Dale Griffith, who brought that idea to me. It was the summer, I guess, of 57, if I remember correctly, and there was a new coach that had just been hired at Southwestern Louisiana at that time, the Raging Cajuns now. Actually, they've changed the name to Louisiana. And he was coming. He was a coach, a high school coach in Mississippi, came up through Tennessee and Kentucky recruiting because this was going to be his first year. And Dale met him and did some workout with him, and he said, you know, I've got two friends that would be interested in coming too, meaning Don Church and myself. And so we talked to him, and I don't even think we worked out. He just looked at some of the records and said, if you guys want to come, I will offer you a full scholarship, and you're welcome to come. And of course, at that time, I was pretty much set up to go to Center College. Bill Kazia was a senior then, I think, and I talked to him about going to Center just as a player, a basketball player, not a scholarship, because I don't think they gave scholarships back then. But really, it worked out great, Mark, because we the three of us went down there, and it was an eye opener to go to Louisiana. I didn't know much about it at that time, but a great experience. Burl Shipley turned out to be a great coach, had some fantastic pro players that played eventually in the pros. So it was a good experience. I'm very fortunate that happened, and spent good years down there, and met my wife of I guess now 60 years, and so it worked out well.
Well, you've not only spent years down there, you had some really good years. I know you had a 42-point game, I believe it was.
Yeah, actually a 40-point game. The way we were set up, Mark, you know, we had different roles. Burl ran the Auburn Shuffle at that time, Coach Shipley, and so we, you know, we had some really good shooters on our team, and while you know, I felt like I could shoot the ball well. My goal at that time, or my part, was to play defense and try to rebound. We had a couple guys that could really shoot, so I didn't really. I think my average, was 10 or 12 points a game, so I wasn't a big scorer there. But in my senior year, the guys, I guess, I hit a couple shots to start out. And I ended up with they kept feeding me the ball, and it kept going in, so I ended up with 40 points. At that time was the record for the most points that Louisiana had ever gotten. But it was a good night. It was, like I say, it was a fun time there. I enjoyed every minute of it. The people in Louisiana were great. And, it kind of started out for, what I wanted to do, later in life. It kind of was a real learning experience being 1,200 miles away from home. And, we didn't go home at all, in college, Mark. It was play during Thanksgiving, play during Christmas. We sometimes went to summer school, or we played in a league that the cities had around Lafayette that we played, and so it was a tough time if you wanted to be around home because you weren't.
Right. I mean, it makes you grow up pretty quick.
It does,
when
yeah.
When you have to do that. So that record stood for some time there. I know an NBA guy ended up breaking it, right? A guy that made it pretty good in the NBA.
Yeah, Bo Lamar was, I think, the first guy that got more than 40 points, and then Andrew Toney, who I think for years played with Philadelphia. And I think he probably averaged 40 points a game during that time. He was a terrific scorer, and like I said, ended up getting drafted and playing for Philadelphia for several years as an all-star guard.
Yeah, some really good players have come through there, and man, how about their football team this year? They're just they're pulling off upsets after upsets. Seems like.
Mark, this is really the first year they've had a real good team down there. I mean, they for years were kind of, these teams that play for the $800,000 or $900,000 take home. They've played over the years. I saw them play University of Texas here. I knew it was going to be a bad day when Texas ran back the opening kickoff 100 yards for a touchdown, but and it turned out to be they played Texas A&M, which they did, believe it or not, beat Texas A&M in Lafayette. I think they tore the goalpost down and carried him through town. It was probably the biggest win in history. But they've really come up in the last few years, and like I say, it's pretty deserving because they've worked hard to try to build their program down there. But
right,
when we were there, it was basically all Louisiana conference, the old Gulf States conference that we played in, and teams like Louisiana Tech and McNeese and schools like that. All Louisiana schools were in that conference.
So Center was your
Center was my place that I thought I was going to go. Dale and I took a trip to West Virginia, and back then they would offer you walk-on stuff that you could try to make the team, and Center was just a place that it appealed to me. They had a good basketball team there, and it was just something that I thought I would do. And like I say, at the last second, I'm not sure my parents were the happiest when I decided to do that, but it turned out to be a good thing to do, and I'm glad I did it.
Yeah. Well, tell us about your career. You're still working, and
yeah, I'm still working, Mark. The job I do is something I really love. Ann and I were married in 1960, and so that was my senior year. And then after graduation, we decided that we wanted to move to Houston, which seemed like an opportunity place to do. I knew I wanted to be in the financial business. I'd studied that in economics and finance in college. And I knew Houston would probably be a pretty good place to get a start in that, which it turned out to be. And so I've been licensed with the New York Stock Exchange firm now for 55 years. So it's been a good ride and something I really enjoy doing. I've got clients that I've worked with for almost that whole time, second and third generation families. So it's been a nice experience.
That's great. That's great. I'm trying to look you up here. I think I got trying to see how many points you scored. I think you were just shy of 1,000 maybe at Ashland. Do you remember? Or
yeah, I think I can't remember at that time. I think I averaged somewhere close to 20-some points, if I recall, my senior year, and
here, I got it. I found it here. You scored 753.
Yeah.
In 56 games.
Okay.
Because I guess you didn't play any as a sophomore, but
back then we really didn't. I know a lot of the guys. I was shocked to see that the current team had what I would call a middle school player, but it turned out to be a pretty doggone good player from what I saw. But we didn't. I didn't play much as a sophomore. I did, play more as a junior, and then a senior. I really got to play all the time. But like I say, I have no regrets on anything that happened in Ashland. And, always in my mind, think that was probably one of the best places I could have ever grown up.
Yeah, I'm just kind of looking at your senior year here too, Howard, and you had 31 against Hazard. Looks like that was your high game. 29 against Catlettsburg, and double figures in all but 2 games that year. So that was really a really good season. You averaged 20.1, points a game that year. So, and like you said, that roster of people, not too bad,
No, we had a good team, a good coach. I can remember, Mark, and you would too, because I know you went to games as a youngster. How that old gym filled up, and it was like I said, it kind of reminds me of a gym, the Hoosiers, and it was certainly a classic place to play in, and enjoyed every second of it.
Yeah, it was definitely an interesting place, and a lot of big moments there, and they're gonna recognize that as one of the historic gyms in Kentucky, actually. So there were so many good teams that came out of there, I guess, and they just felt like they needed to do that, especially the 28 team and 61 team both played there. So you think about, and a couple other state champions in the 30s that were part of that, and I think some other runner-up teams. So a lot of history in that place. They still use it. It's still a regular place that they practice in and have grade school tournaments in, and middle school and different things. So, like
I've told you, I think, Mark, when I went back to one of the reunions, it was interesting to walk in there, and gosh, the place did look fairly similar. It changed a little, but I think one thing I've told you before, those locker rooms haven't changed too much. They were still pretty tough to be in, but. Again, that's part of the mystique of everything.
Some of the paint that those coaches peeled off the wall, yelling. Still on the ground there.
It's still on the ground, that's for sure.
Well, it's been great catching up with you and talking to you, and I appreciate your time. It's been very interesting for sure.
Yeah, Mark, thanks for having me. Like I say, I still follow Ashland sports very closely. Enjoy your input on. Putting us in contact. I'm not the most computer literate guy, but it's nice to be able to watch some of the games and also be part of some of the broadcasts that they do nowadays. It kind of keeps you in touch with what's going on.
I think that that team last year, you got to see them. That 33-0 team, you got to see them a lot because of Facebook and those kind of things, and my town TV.
That's great. Mark, just a comment on that team. I think that was one of the better coach teams I've ever seen in high school. I thought they were probably the best playmakers I've ever seen. They were so unselfish, and everybody on that team, was looking after the other guy, and it was just a pleasure to watch those guys play. I mean, a couple games I'd almost given up, and that last second. It was an 80-foot shot or whatever it was that went in. Those guys certainly deserved it. It was too bad they didn't get to go to the state tournament, but they still had a lot of nice memories.
Yeah. You never know what might have happened. I mean, I think they were certainly they'd have been one of the hotter teams, but everybody's pretty good at that time, too. So I guess you never know, what's going to happen there. But
we'll have to go by your recreations of those games, which I certainly enjoyed. Also matching up against different eras, and also through the state tournament. It was fun to listen to.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, had a blast doing that. All right. Well, we'll let you go. Thanks for your time. And
thanks, Mark. And anybody in Ashland that ever gets to Austin, give me a call. I'd love to visit with you.
All right. Thanks
Talk to you soon. Okay.
Bye.